We're going to switch gears a little bit and prepare for our sermon. Pastor Adonia has prepared a great sermon today, following in our sermon series. And we've just got a short music video to help prepare our hearts, so please listen and enjoy.
I've been a walking heartache, I've made a mess of me. The person that I've been lately ain't who I wanna be. But you stay here right beside me and watch as the storm blows through. And I need you, 'cause God gave me you for the ups and downs. God gave me you for the days of doubt, and for when I think I lost my way, there are no words here left to say it's true. God gave me you, gave me you. More here than what we're seeing, a divine conspiracy, that you, an angel lovely, would somehow fall for me. You'll always be love's great martyr, and I'll be the flattered fool, and I need you. Yeah, God gave me you for the ups and downs. God gave me you for the days of doubt, and for when I think I lost my way, there are no words here left to say it's true. God gave me you. On my own I'm only half of what I could be. I can't do without you. We are stitched together, and what love has tethered, I pray we never undo. 'Cause God gave me you for the ups and downs. God gave me you for the days of doubt. God gave me you for the ups and downs. God gave me you for the days of doubt, and for when I think I lost my way, there are no words here left to say it's true. God gave me you, gave me you. He gave me
Guys, got a little dose of country. I love country music, actually. I grew up in rural Missouri. There's not much else on the radio besides country music, but there's something that's just really sincere, and it can tell a story through it, so every once in a while. I hope you enjoyed that, and I think it's a good lead-in to my message today. Good morning, by the way. It's so wonderful to see you. So today we're continuing in our series about this, which is building God-centered families, and it's based on this point from our vision, which we are building God-centered marriages and families that are the dwelling place of God and the cornerstone of a healthy society. And I think we've had some really great messages so far in this series, haven't we? I really appreciated Andrew. Andrew's not here, but Andrew gave such a great one the other week and Mike last week. So today I'm going to be focusing in on the point of marriage. And my topic is Marriage is the key. And I know not all of you are married, but that's okay. We're all in different places. Some of us here are not married yet. Some of us are newlyweds. Some of us have been married for 40 years. Some of us have been married and are no longer married. And even for those of us who are married, some of us are in absolute bliss maybe, and some of us may not exactly be in absolute bliss. Some of you might be really fighting for your marriage right now, or some of you might just be kind of in marriage but not really moving forward with it. So everybody's in a different place, but whether or not you are married or wherever you are at in your marriage, I think that this topic has value for everyone, whether you're preparing for it or you can relate, you can see what happened in your parents' marriage that has affected you in your life and gives you some ideas of what you can create in the future. So it can be a touchy topic, and I just want to acknowledge that ahead of time. And I am going to speak some truths today that are important. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." The truth can also be uncomfortable sometimes, so take it both, okay? So the title I have, Marriage is the Key, is really important to me, and I want to examine why is marriage the key. You could say, I think you could think, well, isn't the parent-child relationship the key, or isn't love the key? I mean, all those answers are yes, but there's a really specific reason why I'm going to talk about marriage being a key today. So to understand that, it requires a little bit of backstory. And I'm going to go back all the way to beginning to Adam and Eve, because they were the first couple. Adam and Eve were the first human beings that God breathed his life into, and they were the first ancestors of all of us. And they were created in God's own image. I have this from Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. That is such a powerful little verse in itself, saying that male and female are in the image of God. It actually says something about God too, doesn't it? That God has both aspects. But both men and women are individual embodiments of God, of God's truth. And they were intended by God to become the first husband and wife. After they had reached maturity, originally in God's envisioned design, after they had reached maturity, God would have blessed them in marriage. And if they had been able to reach maturity before this point, I think the point of God wanting them to reach maturity would be so that they know their own value as children of God. And they could then, with that knowledge, understanding, then be able to see each other. And Adam could see Eve's value as a daughter of God, and Eve could see Adam's value as a son of God. And then having confidence in their childrenship, that they wouldn't be looking for the other person to fill their needs, but they would be looking to serve and uplift their spouse. And they would have treated each other with mutual love and respect. From that point, coming together, what kind of family would they have created? If they had known their true value, if they loved and respected each other, seeing each other with God's eyes and thinking, wow, when I see you, I see God. I always think of that line from Les Miserables. To love another person is to see the face of God, you know? I feel like that would have been Adam and Eve's experience, like just blown away by the amazingness of Adam and blown away by the amazingness of Eve. And then with just like incredible love, their children would have grown up knowing nothing else but the beauty of love and God's love being substantiated through their experience with their own parents. They would have come to reflect the fullness of God, and God would have lived in them and with them. They would have given birth to children who knew only love, and they would have become the original ancestors of all humanity. And God's ideal was that each one of us would have had that kind of experience. However, history tells us a different story. Disobeying God's commandment not to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and falling temptation to Lucifer, the serpent, Adam and Eve began a relationship before they reached maturity and without the blessing of God. So it was in this first conjugal relationship, this first marriage relationship, that things went wrong. And these problems have been perpetuated throughout history. And I really feel like no matter how many policies we make, no matter how many laws we pass, no matter how much we work on our education system, no matter how many environmental efforts we make, no matter how many social organizations we create to fix the injustices of the world, they're all just bandages. They're all just trying to fix the symptoms for which humanity doesn't really know the root of, don't really know where all these come from. And until we fix or go back to and restore the root problem, we can't really take care of all these other issues. So I want to go into the Bible story of what happened and look at it a little bit more closely with you. This is Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say, 'You must not eat from any tree in the garden?'" The woman said to the serpent, "Oh, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, 'You must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die.'" "You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil." When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man, "Where are you?" He answered, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." And he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" The man said, "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." So this is a very short passage in the Bible, but there's a lot there, and there's a lot to read between the lines. And I'm not going to go into all of it today. But there's some very clear things we see from this. You know, God asked what happened. They hid themselves, they covered themselves, and they blamed each other and were banished from the Garden of Eden. We know this happened. Now, if their relationship started before they were mature and with shame and blame, as we see, here's a picture. God's asking Adam, and Adam's pointing to Eve, and Eve's pointing to the serpent, right? What kind of home life do you think Cain and Abel grew up in? When already, before they were born, I'm sure Adam and Eve weren't happy with being banished from the Garden of Eden. And they were already blaming each other, not taking responsibility for their actions. What do you think Cain and Abel saw from small children as they grew up? How did they learn to relate to each other? Badly, right? And we know what happened. Some of the next verses in Genesis tell us of how Cain and Abel made offerings to God, and Abel's was accepted and Cain's wasn't, and Cain killed Abel. This is the first family. So the gruesome and sorrowful history that we see throughout the Bible, and even in modern history, actually isn't so surprising, is it? I actually think it's quite amazing that humanity is learning what love is, and that there's actually so much beauty and goodness in this world. I think it's really a testament to God, isn't it? A testament to all the saints and sages, people who didn't learn from their environment because the environment wasn't good, but they learned to seek God, and they learned love through their relationship with God. And then with Jesus, Jesus brought a whole new level of love to this world and elevated humanity's consciousness. So I think we should give God and Jesus a round of applause. If you know some beauty or goodness or love in your life, we have to thank God and Jesus. God is truly working in this world and in our lives. But I also think that God isn't going to be truly happy until the world of peace, the world of joy, the world of happiness that he envisioned is a reality for all of us. And I feel like right now, it's progressed, yes, but it's like a war. It's raging back and forth. You turn on the news and you see all kinds of terrible, terrible things that are happening. But you also know that goodness is rising, and I feel like humanity's consciousness is rising. There's so much beauty and goodness in this world. It's like a battle raging back and forth. But what is going to turn the tide? Something has to switch so that it's not a war, but that all of God's children can come back to him. So that's why I'm talking about marriage as the key. What is the key? I think a lot of people say, well, God is the key. Jesus is the key. And yes, absolutely, we wouldn't be anywhere without God and Jesus and the Bible and the saints and sages of the past. But also, God created us with free will, didn't he? God didn't create us to be robots or beings programmed to live and act a certain way. God gave us free will because he wanted us to be able to choose to love God, choose to love our neighbor. Because in choosing, we become an owner, and God wanted to share ownership of this beautiful world with us. So God created us with free will, and with that free will, a portion of responsibility that we need to accomplish in order for God's will to actually become a reality. And since it was human beings, Adam and Eve, a husband and wife who separated from God in the beginning, it is us, human beings, husbands and wives, who are the key to restore what was lost. So I'm going to be talking about marriage. And marriage is really interesting. I feel like there's two extremes to it, because each one of us, I feel like true love is what we long for. I don't think there's anybody born in this world who just thinks, who needs love? I don't care about true love. We might get jaded, and from our experiences, we might be hurt, and we might turn away from that. But in our deepest hearts, we are designed as love to be like the biggest experience of our life. God created love to be more powerful than the power of the principle. So we long for love. We're designed for love. And yet, a marriage relationship can be one of the most difficult relationships to experience love in. Isn't it like a dichotomy? It can be one of the most challenging experiences to make work in our life. Yeah? Mike and I have been married for about 14 and a half years now. And I will say, I don't know what I would do without my husband. And the most love and most acceptance I found in my relationship with my husband. And also, the most frustrated I have ever been in my life has been with my husband. So there can be these extremes in experience. So we're programmed for true love. That's something we naturally desire. And yet, the reality of our experience has been the result of Adam and Eve's failed relationship. And all of the misuse and abuse and shame and blame that comes with it. It's very hard to realize our heart's desire when humanity's collective experience has been twisted and broken. And we see the results of that everywhere, right? Because of the fall, men and women are often at odds with each other. Sadly, women have been historically oppressed by men. Put down, abused. Even today, women are largely objectified. And even in seemingly harmless jokes that I hear just in passing from men, there's these like nuances of like, wow, how stupid could you get? But women are not exempt from this either, are we? We have all kinds of our own assumptions and jokes and nuances we have about men. Actually, women can be very good at, we can be very sneaky in how we can be manipulative and undermine the men in our life, even while appearing innocent or like the victim. And these kind of roles, while you may not have experienced all of those yourself, as a whole, humanity is like in this power play between men and women. And why is it so painful when a love relationship doesn't work out? There are things that haven't worked out in my life. School didn't work out very well for me. Maybe some job doesn't work out for you. Maybe your garden didn't grow the way you wanted to. But nothing is so painful as a love relationship that's broken. Why is there so much anger and resentment generated from a broken relationship? I mean, you can talk to your friends and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, but that's how life is. That's just the way it goes sometimes. You just got to move on. Life goes on. But our hearts were never made to be broken. God did not design us to experience that. The misuse and abuse of love is I'm going to say this twice, it's a direct violation of God's design for us. The misuse and abuse of love is a direct violation of what we were created to be. So I want to share something that's a little bit more on the positive side of what we are created, how we are created to have a relationship. I've been reading the Hak Jahan Moon anthology, and I found this beautiful description. Women are the individual embodiments of truth, representing one of the two natures of the incorporeal God, who possesses yin and yang in both external form and internal nature. Therefore, women are not in a competitive relationship with men who represent the other side of God. Women are not the assistants of men. They are interdependent partners who make the world whole. When God created men and women, God established them as ideal counterparts for each other and made it so they can become one through true love. From the perspective of true love, women are the perfect object partners of the love of men. And in regard to their value, men and women are absolutely equal. The fact that the natures of men and women are different does not pose a problem. Those differences are factors that bring on the stimulation of love. In the original ideal, a man and a woman united in love, in true love, have the right of equal position and equal status. Moreover, a man and a woman united in true love have the right to participate as equals, and through their love, they can always be together. Isn't that beautiful? I'm so grateful for Reverend and Mrs. Moon, because most people, when they look at that story of Adam and Eve from the Bible, all they see is that it was a tree and a fruit. And there can be debates about whether it was an apple or a plum or a pear or a passion fruit. And they see that disobedience was the problem. But Reverend and Mrs. Moon have shown us that in between the lines, that it was actually the love relationship of Adam and Eve, tainted by Lucifer, that you could say opened the Pandora's box of what we see in the world today. But they have shown us that the key of coming back to God is in this relationship. And as a couple, they've passed the keys on to us, how to do that. So let's give Reverend and Mrs. Moon, our true parents, an applause. So I know there's some young people in the audience. You're not married yet. But I want to say, work on yourselves. Work on maturing your heart. Become experts in the practice of seeing others from God's point of view, because this is what Adam and Eve didn't do, right? They didn't take the time to mature their own self. They couldn't realize their own value, this beautiful value that Mother Moon is talking about in this quote, right? And therefore they could not recognize that value in their spouse. So take the time to mature your own heart in seeing from God's viewpoint. And this is an incredible foundation for your future marriage. Those of you who are married, I implore you, care for and protect your marriages actively. Because I will say that there is no other way that evil would like to get into your life than through your marriage. Your marriage is the top target for evil, just as it was for Adam and Eve. So be proactive. Build a wall of love, true love around your marriage and your family, so that if Satan looks at it, he's like, I'm not messing with that. I can't deal with that. So take the opportunities. We've had a number of great programs that we've done here in our community. With last summer, we held the Marriage Project. Right? We had a retreat up in the mountains for couples to go and to spend time together and to talk together and to receive guidance together. And we've held a couple of marriage courses where we, for like 8 weeks, once a week, we gather together, have like a date night, have delicious food, and we watch a video, and they have conversations together, talking about things that are not always easiest to talk about. Mike and I, even though I've often felt like, wow, we did pretty well for ourselves in our marriage, We're not on the brink of divorce or anything, but there's always been some things that are just hard to talk about. There's always something where you feel like, I think it'd just be simpler not to bring up that topic. Let's just avoid that. But when there's a distance, there's a separation. And when there's a separation, there's not connectedness. There's not a closeness. And separation is just what evil loves. So Mike and I attended the Marriage Project. We went all the way to Pennsylvania for a weekend retreat there, and we had a really lovely time. But actually, through the marriage course that we did when we came back, I really feel like, even now, even though it's been over a year since we've done it, that I really feel the benefits of having had gone through that. It's interesting. I really enjoyed the food. Thank you to everybody who cooked for that. That was amazing. Often, though, during the marriage course, we'd have something that we had to share to one another. We had to share something that we were maybe frustrated with that we hadn't shared before, or share one of our needs that we felt hadn't been being met. And it often wasn't easy, actually. Many times, the evening after the marriage course, I would feel more frustrated than when I had gone in. But it was through that we opened up these conversations, and I feel, so much better at communicating what I was experiencing and thinking and feeling to my husband. Whereas in the past, I would just try to digest it myself and didn't want to create any disruption, or I didn't want to make a confrontation. But that was always creating some separation in our marriage. And I feel like that even now, if he does something that bothers me, even though I still want to just, it's okay, just let it go. But I'm really working on bringing it up, and we resolve things so much more quickly than we used to. So I encourage you, please take those opportunities when they come along. I don't know when our next marriage course is going to be. Andrew and his wife usually run it, and they're leaving for 5 months. But if one of you felt that this would be something really valuable for you and that you wanted to share, we could organize that. Talk to Mike and I. But take these opportunities. It's okay to go outside of your marriage for help. It's okay to go see a counselor. It's okay to have a date night every once in a while. Sometimes we feel like nothing is ever going to change. My husband is the way he is. I am the way I am. And we're okay with that. So this kind of complacency comes in sometimes. But actually, complacency is another way that Satan likes to get into our marriage. You may not like to hear that. But you know what? Satan doesn't actually need to destroy our marriages. He just needs them to be blah enough so that they're uninspiring to our children and the people around us. It's actually easier. He doesn't even have to do any work. Just be blah. Just let them be. But it's true. You can't change other people. And I think that's where we can feel complacent sometimes. Where it's true, we do need to accept our spouse for who they are. And we also need to accept, yeah, I am a certain way. But we can work on ourselves. Even if my spouse never changes the way he is, I can change the way I relate to him. I can love in a new kind of way. I can serve in a new kind of way. You can change the way you relate to your spouse. And it's uncomfortable to do those things because we are also creatures of habit. But I really believe that when we do something different, it's like it creates a new space. It brings a new energy into our relationship. And most likely, your spouse is going to have a different experience with you than they have previously. And if that is the case, they just might do something different in response. So let's not be complacent. It can make a huge difference. And when we can take responsibility for our experience in our marriage, and we can love and serve our spouse, seeing the way that God sees them, we are doing what Adam and Eve were not able to do in the Garden of Eden. They were ashamed, and they blamed. Our goal is to take responsibility for my experience and uplift my spouse. Also, the other thing that Adam and Eve did, they formed a relationship before they were ready, without God's blessing. So in our faith, something that is really unique and special about our faith is that we invite God to bless our marriages. And we do this through doing the things that Adam and Eve couldn't do. So coming back to God, saying, look, even though I know that your children couldn't do this, I'm going to do my best to do what they couldn't do. I want to be your child, and I invite you to bless my marriage. Our goal is to do what Adam and Eve were not able to do, to restore the mistakes that were made and invite God to bless and be at the center of our marriages. And then to share that with others. We've been talking a lot about tribal messiahship and our movement right now. And really what the core of that is showing all people that we come into contact with the path to come back to God's heart as his true children. And to create these families where love is the primary experience. So the main point that I have to make, and this is what I love this about our faith, is that each one of us has the power to do something incredibly significant for God. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how rich you are, how poor you are, how much education you have, how much status you have, what race you are, what faith background you come from, how much influence you have in society, how good you look, how strong you are. It doesn't matter. We can make a difference to God and this world by being victorious in our relationships with your husband and wife and in your family. We have the opportunity to go to the source of what was wrong and restore that in our actual life, in our actual experience. We can invite God into our families and in our marriages. It was the misuse of this relationship that took us away from God, and it is true relationships blessed by God that will bring us back. Every single one of us has the ability to do that. That's why I think our faith is so empowering to people. So I have one final quote to share with you. This is from Reverend Moon. Through marriage, this was so cool. It popped up on my phone yesterday. It was just, I was thinking about what I'm going to talk about, and then this is the quote that popped up. Through marriage, a new future is created. Societies are formed. Nations are built. Because through marriage, children are born, right? Children are the future. So what kind of future? God's world of peace is realized with married families at the center. It is in the family that God's kingdom of heaven is brought about. So that's my message for today. I'm going to leave you with that, and please join me in prayer. Thank you, Gabby. Please join me in prayer.